Matt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. The Super Bowl once again was really interesting, and we'll talk about USC recruiting in a little bit. We'll kind of let our Trojan Nation gather. Some USC fans, myself included, we just finished watching Juju Watkins and the women's basketball team put away Arizona. It was 81-64 in the final minute. So people who are watching the game, we'll give them a few minutes to get a snack, and do what they need to do, and then they'll come here to the Voice of College Football in a few minutes. So we'll hit the recruiting stuff in a little bit for people making their way over from the women's basketball game. But the good starting point is the Super Bowl, because there are a number of things with a USC twist or tie-in that I thought of, and one is that when you see what Andy Reid is able to bring out in Patrick Mahomes, like that's a really important thing. And I say Andy Reid because a lot of people thought that Eric Bieniemy was the guy who was really maximizing Patrick Mahomes, and this year you did see some regression with Matt Nagy, coming over from the Bears after his failed tenure. And for most of the season, Nagy was not doing nearly as well as Bieniemy had done. So it was a fair argument to make. Like, I'm not slamming anyone who's saying that Bieniemy was like the guy. I'm not slamming that point of view. But we saw in the playoffs, Mahomes was Mahomes, and he certainly was Mahomes at the end of the Super Bowl. And like the Chiefs have done this several times. I'm not talking about winning the Super Bowl. I'm talking about starting slowly and then finishing with a flourish. This is now the Reid Mahomes era has not only produced 3 Super Bowl championships, but all 3 Super Bowls were won after being 10 points down. The Chiefs owned the fourth quarter in each of these 3 Super Bowls: 54 against the Jimmy G Niners, 57 against the Eagles, now 58 against the Brock Purdy Niners. So, like, this is a trend. You can't just say it's an aberration, it's an outlier. No, this is a trend. And so, the Chiefs lose Bieniemy, they lose Tyreek Hill, they lose a lot of their high end, shiny new toys at wide receiver. I mean, Rashee Rice was their best receiver this year. They still win it all. That tells you something about Andy Reid finding ways to put the pieces together to align the Rubik's Cube. And so that's all a very long way of saying Caleb Williams' NFL success, it's not just going to be him. Like, he's just not going to walk onto any old NFL roster and be great. Because what if Patrick Mahomes went to the Carolina Panthers? What if Patrick Mahomes went to the pre-DeMeco Ryans Houston Texans? What if Patrick Mahomes, went to, another bottom-rung NFL organization without an elite head coach, without an organization that knew exactly what it was doing? What if he goes to an NFL team that has a Swiss cheese defense as opposed to, Steve Spagnuolo, now the first coordinator ever to win 4 Super Bowls. So many different pieces are in place to help Patrick Mahomes be as great as he's been. Now, make no mistake, like, he is the king right now. He is the ruler of the NFL, and he's the owner of those crunch time moments. But the defense carried the Chiefs most of the season, and the defense carried the Chiefs for most of Super Bowl 58. If the defense isn't lights out, if the defense doesn't allow just one touchdown to a very, very good San Francisco offense, an offense that regularly put up 30 or more over the course of the season, if that defense under Spags doesn't hold the fort as often as it did under pressure, if the Chiefs allow that 3rd and 5 completion just after the 2-minute warning, that's game over. Niners can just milk the clock. They kick a walk-off field goal. Mahomes doesn't have enough time to get the ball back. If the defense doesn't keep rising up and forcing field goals and getting stops, Mahomes isn't in position to win that Super Bowl at the very end. So, that's not a diminishment of Mahomes. It's just saying that he needed help. He needed help from his defense. He needed help from the other pieces of the puzzle in Kansas City. And so Caleb Williams, he just can't walk onto an NFL field and be great. He needs the fit, he needs the coach, he needs the organization. And Mark, I mean, like, this is the voice of college football, not the voice of NFL football. But you know as well as I do, like, you don't even have to study the NFL all that closely to know that the Chicago Bears have been one of the worst run organizations in the NFL for the past several years and really for quite some time. And like, it's not an accident that they've struggled to get the most out of the various high-profile quarterbacks that they've drafted, that they've taken a chance on. And that's not even a negative verdict on Justin Fields. It's just that the organization doesn't surround its quarterbacks with the pieces they need. So what's to say that Caleb Williams, if he goes to Chicago, that he's going to be able to flourish? And of course, the biggest fear and worry I have about Caleb Williams if he goes to Chicago, Matt Eberflus is going to be fired after 1 year. I mean, unless that first year makes significant progress. You know, if it's just same old sorry ASS Bears for another year, Eberflus is gone. So Caleb Williams is going to have 2 coaches in 2 seasons. And that is not a recipe for success. So in my mind, the best scenario for Caleb Williams, if he goes to Washington, he has Cliff Kingsbury. Now that could be good, but the Commanders are not the best run organization. I'm not thrilled with the Dan Quinn hire. They could have gotten someone better. Notably, Mark, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, he said, the guys who run the Commanders, they're a bunch of basketball guys. I'm not going to go there. So Josh Harris, the owner, he's the owner of the 76ers. So Ben Johnson, who seems to know his X's and O's, he seems to know situations, he seems to know people. He thinks the Commanders aren't serious about football. So I would not say that Caleb Williams would have a great situation. It would be better than the Bears, but I don't think it's a great situation in Washington if he goes to the Commanders, even though it'd be a homecoming to the DMV. I don't think that's a great situation. I think in New England at number 3, if the Patriots are willing to trade up with that defense that they have, and I know that Jared Mayo is not a proven head coach, but everyone inside the Patriots locker room and organization thinks that he's smart, he gets it, he's going to be a really good coach. I would say New England is a much better situation than Washington if you had to compare those two. But my ideal scenario for Caleb Williams is if the Minnesota Vikings are willing to put, all their poker chips in the middle of the table and they give the Bears a king's ransom for Caleb Williams. Consider this. You have a young offense-minded coach, Kevin O'Connell, who I think would be kind of, the Andy Reid for Caleb Williams. But beyond that, you have so many other pieces in place in Minnesota. They fixed their defense under Brian Flores, so you have that. Caleb Williams is not going to have Alex Grinch. He's going to have Brian Flores as his defensive coordinator if, under this hypothetical, he goes to the Vikings. And then you have Jordan Addison to throw to. So he gets Jordan Addison back. And we all saw how great Jordan Addison was for Caleb Williams in 2022 at USC. And then not only do you have Jordan Addison, you have Justin Jefferson on the other side of the field. So that to me, if the Vikings want to make a kingmaker type move to go all in on Caleb Williams, that to me is my ideal scenario. But then after that, I'd say the Patriots, then the Commanders, but the Bears is not a good outcome for Caleb Williams. So I hope there's an NFL team that's willing to trade up to number 1 because Patrick Mahomes would be, I'm not going to compare him to a specific kind of player, but he would have an ordinary career if he went to the Carolina Panthers. He has the natural talent, he has the gifts. We can see how much of a genius he is instinctually, but we all see that when bright, promising, talented, potential-filled quarterbacks go to bad NFL orgs, they usually don't escape that. The scars and the bad influences and the negative trajectory created by landing with the wrong organization, that usually overpowers the natural talent. You have to find the right fit. So watching the Super Bowl and seeing Andy Reid, regardless of his coordinator, regardless of the quality of his wide receivers in Kansas City, he still gets the most out of Patrick Mahomes. It just really underscored for me the need for the right fit in the NFL for Caleb Williams.
Folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. This is, of course, what we do here each and every Monday night with Matt Zemek and typically Tim Prangley. Trojans Wire. We hope Tim is getting better. He's under the weather tonight. Super Bowl in the books. And Matt and I both love the NFL. Maybe with Tim not here, it gives us a couple more minutes to exchange some ideas and some thoughts about NFL football. And with the Super Bowl played last night, here are my two quick thoughts. And one is, I'll make it brief because it's not USC related, but I'm going to make the other one and bring it around to USC situation with Lincoln Riley. And one being that, of course, social media being what it is, the fan mentality being what it is, Kyle Shanahan was just beat up over just the way the team performed in the fourth quarter. Of course, this is a second time as a head coach that his team has lost a lead in the fourth quarter to the same franchise, of course. And then he was the offensive coordinator of the 28-3 blown lead. Although I don't think he had much to do with not burning the play clock that should have been done continually in that game. However, I'm going to stick up for Kyle Shanahan. Can I predict the future? No, I do my best in predicting the future, but can I truly predict the future? Of course not. But the man is 44 years old. I don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl, but to just blanket statement, he can't win the big one. I saw that all over the place, Matt, and it led me to, you will be able to relate to this easily. Don Shula lost his first Super Bowl, and he lost his second Super Bowl was with the Dolphins. His first one with the Colts. He loses with the Dolphins. He didn't break through. They said, oh, Don Shula can't win the big one. Tom Landry lost what was the equivalent in NFL circles as Super Bowls, NFL championship games, kept losing in the playoffs, lost his first Super Bowl. He can't win the big one. Andy Reid. It's been a long time since Andy Reid has been a head coach, and he went to 3 straight NFC championship games. He lost a Super Bowl to the Patriots. It took him 20 years to win a Super Bowl. And if we want to take it to the collegiate level, the best example that I can think of would be Tom Osborne, who, of course, had his shot in '83, chose what was a noble decision to win it outright, didn't get it done, and then just was an inferior program to Miami and Florida State. And it was my thought in the late 80s, when is this Nebraska program ever going to break through? There's no way. They're losing these Orange Bowl games by 20 points to Miami and Florida State. Well, he broke through as well. So it can be done. So that's just my sidebar on Kyle Shanahan. But as it relates to Andy Reid and just looking at what we've seen these Chiefs teams do just in the last few years, as you alluded to, very offensive-minded team that carried it with Tyreek Hill with just speed and space and wanting to play up tempo and just emphasizing the offense. And they've been able to, without missing a beat, become a very defensive-oriented team. And so Andy Reid has been able to adapt to that. Bill Belichick is probably the master of being able to adapt a team from week to week. And we have seen various coaches. Steve Spurrier comes to mind at the college level, even though he didn't win at the highest level during his stay at South Carolina. But he went from fun and gun with Florida to a very defensive-minded, run-oriented team that didn't throw the ball much or well, but he got his biggest success there at South Carolina and any way beyond anything that they've experienced there in the history of South Carolina football, with 3 consecutive 11-win seasons, winning in a very different style than what Steve Spurrier would like. So whether Lincoln Riley can truly adapt to what the situation, the conference, the schedule, his personnel all of that dictates what he should be doing with this USC team going forward. Is going to be mighty interesting to see if it's more important for him to score 50 points a game or more important for him to win championships.
That's right. And that's why we saw the metamorphosis with this, complete 180 in terms of his defensive staff. He went from, hey, Alex Grinch, you have the keys to the defense. You do your thing, to, oh, I need excellence at every position, and I need accountability and developmental skills and strong player technique everywhere. And I need to convince head coaches and coordinators to come here and be position coaches. I mean, wow, just truly a complete 180. Like, this was not, a 30-degree, 45-degree change. This was a total flip, upside down, inside out, a completely diametrically different approach to defense from Lincoln Riley. And, people watching here at the Voice of College Football, like, we saw this in the chat every Monday, Mark. You know this. You were here. Tim Prangley was here. Like, we would see it every week in November and on into early December. Lincoln Riley's not going to change his spots. Lincoln Riley is who he is. Like, Lincoln Riley is set in his ways. Lincoln Riley is stubborn, never going to appreciate defense, never going to turn over and embrace a new philosophy. Sure looks like it. Like, if you were going to say, what would a philosophical change look like? It's going to look like this. With Eric Henderson, with Doug Belk, with Matt Entz, with Danton Lynn, retaining Taylor Mays. I mean, like, this is an all-star defensive staff. He went from having a staff with his buddies, people that he knew from Oklahoma, to going with a bunch of outsiders. Exactly the thing that so many skeptics thought Lincoln Riley would never do. But, I think the thing that, I saw this. I don't know about you, Mark, but I certainly saw this. Like, Lincoln Riley got humiliated last year. Like, at Oklahoma, he never lost more than 2 games. And last year at USC, he lost more than 2, but in the bowl game. So he still didn't lose more than 2 games in the regular season. This was his first taste of true humiliation as a head coach. 7-5. It was orders of magnitude worse than anything he ever went through at Oklahoma. So, like, that is something that we all, in retrospect, needed to appreciate more. That it's not just he failed to make the playoffs. It's not just that he failed to win the Pac-12. No, he was brought to his knees. He was embarrassed. And like, Oklahoma had the occasional embarrassing game under Riley. Whether it's in the playoff or also, during the regular season, like when the bottom would fall out at Kansas State or against Iowa State occasionally. But, like, in terms of a whole season, this was his first truly miserable season in which he fell, a million miles short of expectations. When you're competing at the highest level and you get humiliated and dressed down like that, the idea that, well, you're just going to keep doing what you're doing. No, of course you're going to change. Of course you realize how much money you're getting paid. You realize how much you're being entrusted with a blue blood football brand. You're not going to do nothing. Like, and like, Lincoln Riley deserves credit for what he's doing, but let's be measured in giving that credit. Like, if you get humiliated and you don't change significantly how you do business, you're not a serious person. And so Lincoln Riley's not this godlike figure for making these changes on defense. This is normally how it's supposed to be. When you're a prominent coach and you get kicked to the curb and you realize that your methodology that you doubled down on by retaining Alex Grinch for 2023, when the methods that you doubled down on are convincingly destroyed and they're proven to not work, of course you're going to make big changes. And so it struck me as really weird that people thought, oh, Lincoln Riley's never going to change. Like, as though having this horrible failed season wasn't going to elicit any different turn or different flavor in terms of his philosophy. Now, having said how obvious and normal it is that Lincoln Riley would pivot and change, I am certainly was not expecting the defensive staff to be this good, this credentialed, this deep, this balanced. I mean, Lincoln Riley overshot even my expectations. Like, I was expecting significant changes to be made, but like, this has been even far greater than what I was expecting. Like, I thought he'd hire a good defensive coordinator. Like, I thought he would reach that bar. I thought he would go for someone really strong, and Danton Lynn meets that. But like, he has just hit grand slams with these position coaches, in convincing guys to come from a head coaching level, Matt Entz, or a defensive coordinator level, Doug Belk, and to come from coaching Aaron Donald, Eric Henderson, and just being position coaches. Like, that is a remarkable degree of salesmanship. And of course, Jen Cohen and the USC athletic department, they deserve credit for shelling out the dollars to make sure that USC and Riley could field this good of a defensive coaching staff. So parts of this were obvious. Like, as soon as that UCLA game ended, like, I thought major changes were going to occur. But even then, I didn't know that it could possibly look this good and would represent this substantial a turnaround.